Hi guys, welcome back to my video. If you're new here, it's blessed guys. If you're not here, welcome back. Today's video is something that's been requested like quite a lot. So now it's the new academic year, year 12s are going into year 13 and whatnot. So I'm getting loads of like messages like either on LinkedIn or like Instagram. People want like personal statement advice and stuff like that. So I did a short video like on 3 tips I'd give myself if I was writing my personal statement again. But other than that, I thought a good thing to do is like to read out my personal statement out loud. I feel like sometimes it's hard to get started, but like if you know what a personal statement looks like, then you can get on the right track. So just in terms of like context, I study history right now, studying history at the University of Oxford. So this was my personal statement. Which unis did I apply to? Damn, I applied to Oxford, Warwick, UCL, LSE, and I think Queen Mary University or King's. Not too sure. So those are the 5 unis I applied to, and I got offers from all 5 of my universities. So context. How did it start? Cool. So I feel like I'll just read it and then like I'll talk about it like after, because I can talk for time. Cool. This is the first paragraph. I divided into like what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs. So the first mini part. As a person of Congolese descent living in the UK, my perceptions of Africa have been conflicted by opposing histories of the region. At school, I've encountered narratives which highlight the corruption of local leaders as being responsible for underdevelopment in many parts of the region. Other views stress colonial legacy as the most important factor. History A-level taught me to challenge arguments and reach a justified judgment on competing narratives. I hope to develop this skill at university. Every time like we had personal statement sessions and they were just talking to us about a personal statement, they always said like, it's in the name, it has to be personal. So like, tell your story. And like here what I was trying to do is like, tell the story of being Congolese. Yes, like I have seen many, as a Nigerian, as a Congolese, whatever. Like, I saw a lot of people do that. So I was like, cool, that's something I wanted to do. But also like I said, tell a story. So for my story and in terms of like studying history is just like narratives, right? Like people say, Africa, a country in Africa is like this because of XYZ, there's corrupt leaders. But then otherwhere, like, I talk to my parents, just like, it's the West. You get it? It's like people who came in, they're just wrecking the region. So it's like cool. That whole like theme of it was like, there's opposing narratives. Like some people are saying this, some people are saying this. It's just like studying history A-level, like you're gonna have a source, one source is gonna say this, one source is gonna say that. But what does history teach you to do? It teaches you how to like reach a justified judgment on competing narratives. So like make your own judgment on this type of stuff. So that's what I was talking about. That's like the way I tried to kick it off, just to make it personal and tell my story. So that was paragraph 1. Then I'll move down to paragraph 2. Oh yeah, cool. Reading, I remember this. I had to read a book, right? I was like, cool, I'm gonna talk about the Congo, but like where I'm from Congo, DRC, the main Congo. Like I said, this was what I was trying to talk about, just like being Congolese. But then it's like, you can't really talk about Congo and you don't really know a lot about it. Obviously you know it, like culture and stuff, but you need facts. So I found a book, it's called The Congo, and I read it. It even finished me, I think it was like 350 plus pages and it was thick. You know them books like, it might be 200 pages, but like the text is small, so you get through it quickly. This book was thick. So it took me a while to get through, but we did it. I didn't even finish it by the time I wrote my personal statement. I was like, I'll make sure it's done, but it's not done now. But it worked off, so it's all cool. So this is the second paragraph. Reading the Congo by, I'm finna butcher his name. That's not from my tribe. That's all I don't know his name. But Reading the Congo by George Zongola Dalaja. Reading the Alright, cool. So Reading the Congo by this author highlighted that the reason for the country's poverty is not as simple as some narratives suggest. Though King Leopold's influence had disastrous consequences, author argues his method of governance re-emerged in the forms of men such as Laurent Kabila and Mobutu Sese Seko, who also saw the country as their personal possession long after 1908. This makes it difficult to claim that either colonialism or corrupt leadership were the main factors for the Congo's poverty. Didn't even say the Congo's poverty, but cool. For Congo's poverty. However, understanding the role that imperialism played in the 19th century helps me to understand current issues such as Sino-African relations. Though some regard these relations as a valuable opportunity for Africa, I can draw many parallels between Chinese investments in Africa and colonialism, an example being debt trade diplomacy, which gives a stronger foothold in independent African states. Cool. So like I said, in the second paragraph, I was just like, I need Vaseline, lips are dry. Alright, we're back. So obviously in paragraph 1 I started with like history, my story being Congolese, and like competing narratives. So then I kind of like touched on it more in paragraph 2. So the whole thing was like, you know, Congolese. By the way, it's not like I'm not gonna go into history too much. Like I'm just making like my personal statement make sense in a way. So obviously paragraph 1, that's what I was talking about. In paragraph 2 I just go into like a bit more detail. So I talk about stuff I mentioned in the first part, just like competing narratives. So one narrative being, you know, Congolese poverty being because of Western involvement in the country due to like, you know, imperialism. So the first argument, you know, imperialism is bad. So I acknowledge that, but then it's like, okay, though imperialism was bad and there was leaders like, you know, King Leopold, who had influence of the Congo, this sort of governments like came again, like by people who are Congolese themselves, like who are running the Congo. So it's just like, for like personal statement, what do they like? I don't consider myself as like a professional guru, but like every time we had a session, it's just like, you wanna make a point, you wanna argue with it. You wanna make a point and you wanna like kind of have fun with it. So explore these narratives, explore this. So this was what I was trying to do. So I was trying to say like, okay, this is what some people say, this is what other people say, and this is what I'm saying. So at the end I said, you know, it makes it difficult to claim that either X or Y is responsible for Congo's poverty. So it's like, it's not as easy as saying it's the West or it's corrupt leaders. It's much more complicated than that. And there's like many issues and stuff that's involved in this narrative. But then afterwards, rather than like touching more on it and like giving my kind of opinion, I related it to something that's happening more recently. So I just talked about that. So like how I understand the background, I'm understanding like, you know, Congo's history from all the way from 1908 when King Leopold had possession of the country, and now how I'm making parallels to right now where there's China's involvement in Congo. Talked a little bit about debt trap diplomacy, because I was kind of influenced about neo-colonialism at the time. So I had fun with that. And I'd say that something else, like, it's not all about books. I feel like there's a narrative that if you're writing a personal statement, you just have to read 1,000 books. Stuff about debt trap diplomacy, neo-colonialism, I read a little bit of what I could, but most of it I got from like YouTube. So like what's China doing in the region, what's going on, neo-colonialism. So I feel like you don't have to just read 1,000 books, just like use loads of resources. I mentioned it in the short, but just like, you know, podcasts, if it's a YouTube video, it's a YouTube video. I even mentioned a YouTube video further down, but stuff like that. So you can be creative and imaginative with it. Don't feel like you just have to read. So the third paragraph is something completely different. So obviously I talked about Africa, Africa's a continent. I talked about Congo, I touched on that, I talked about different narratives, talked about how understanding the history relates to the present and stuff that's going on. And then I talked about something completely different. So this is my EPQ. So write my EPQ titled, Why Has Coronavirus Disproportionately Affected the Black Community in the UK and the US was eye-opening. I identified myths about the black body which originate from the slavery era yet still affect the medical treatment of black people today. For instance, the 1787 manual, a treatise on tropical diseases claimed that the black body was less susceptible to pain than their white counterparts. In recent years, I found that medical textbooks still support this racial bias. It is clear that the past still influences the social and political problems we currently face. This is a reason why I value history. The extra layer of perception I've gained from linking the present to the past enhances my understanding of modern society. Yeah, so this was different. So I touched on Congo, and then I went to something kind of different, which was my EPQ. So obviously I wrote my EPQ on like coronavirus. When was I? I was in year 13 I did year 13 twice. I was in year 13, yes I did year 13, what year is this? This was 2022, so the coronavirus was still like kind of new, and I was just like, cool. The coronavirus is going on, it's affecting loads of it's disproportionately affecting black people. I was like, why? But one of the things I did find like when I was doing research is just how, you know, medicine today is still influenced by the past. So I talked about in 1787, there were people who tried to like come with ideas that, you know, black people feel less pain than like white patients. And even though that's from 1787, there was like a recent scandal when I think it was an Edexcel textbook, don't quote me, but a medical textbook had like kind of some bullet points about each different like races and ethnic minorities. And one of the things that they said about black people, I think, was something about they feel less pain than their white counterparts. I'll attach a picture or something like that. And then it was just like, cool. understanding this is just like the history isn't something that's just like left in the past, like it's irrelevant. The history is still influencing what we have today. That's why the last sentence I said is, this is a reason why I value history. The extra layer of perception I've gained from linking the present to the past enhances my understanding of modern society. And I saw that in my EPQ. So I just like, yeah. When I wrote that, I was like, that line slapped. And this is the third to last paragraph. In the wake of Black History Month, I found watching Akala's address to the Oxford Union thought-provoking. He questioned whether we can fully understand the human story when we are not informed of its entirety. It was necessary for me to note that history is distorted for reasons beyond race alone. For example, gender and class are also factors which are often overlooked when viewing history. This led me to conduct some study into the Match Girls' strike. It was shocking to unearth that working class women and girls were exposed to such poor working conditions, even relative to their male counterparts. Akala's address also proved useful for my role in our Sixth Form's History Society, where I create research projects. Now, the projects I create consider multiple viewpoints and lenses, allowing for a more holistic understanding of the world we live in. One particular project I enjoy creating is titled The Rocky Road to British Democracy, which aims to counter the view that Britain was always a democratic nation. So, like I said again, with your personal statement, you want to have fun with it, you want to explore different arguments, especially like if you're a humanities student, you just want to challenge them. So, one thing I found in Akala's speech, I haven't read it, I haven't listened to it in time, so it's still a bit fuzzy, but I do remember he was talking about, history being distorted for reasons beyond race alone. So using an example of slavery, how that has helped, that's still shaping modern society today, but that's like from a race perspective, black people and maybe white people and their white counterparts. But there's also, history is like multifaceted, so it's not just race that we see history through, but it's also class, it's also, what else did I say? Gender. So that's like kind of the things I was talking about. I led that to some of the stuff I was doing in school. So I created like a research project. So just like making it personal, I guess, just linking it back to other things. And obviously with personal statement, it depends what you're applying to. I can't lie, I was told that if you're applying to like Oxbridge and all like these unis like LSE, UCL, whatever, they don't really care about you in the sense that a personal statement for these unis is like very academic. Like sometimes, you have teachers who are saying, okay, you're talking so much about academics and whatnot. Talk in length about, the stuff that you do. You're senior prefect, I was a senior prefect. Talk a lot about, other stuff that you're involved in. It's just like, cool. It would be nice to say, but more time if you're applying to these unis, like the focus is a lot more academic. So I think the divide is meant to be, it was either 80-20 or 90-10. I forgot exactly what it is, but I'd say like definitely have like at least a small paragraph where you talk about stuff that you do outside of academics. So this was my penultimate one. I said, so during sixth form, I won a Jack Petchey Award for something I did in secondary school. I kind of go into like a bit of stuff like what it was about and details and blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to do that. And then I also said, moreover, I have used my communication skills to present assemblies for the History Society. That's just like even though it's extracurricular, it's still academic because like I told you, like these unis has to be academic. But I said outside of school, I'm a proud panel member for the Association for Young People's Health, a role which allows me to influence health policy. So this was when I was volunteering for like a charity. They are involved in like health policy. So like you sit on a panel, you talk like, hey, what do you think about young people's mental health? And then you just talking. So for like, I managed to, even though it has to be academic, like managed to get who I am as a person in it too. So that's what I was trying to do. But like I said, it's a lot of academic focus. So if you aren't applying to those universities, then definitely talk about it like more at length, like NCA. This is a meme that you say, there's this meme that you have to talk about NCS, but talk about NCS, talk about if you're captain of your football team, if you're involved in stuff like that. For like extracurriculars, even though you're not going to talk about it too much in like a Oxford personal statement, like you definitely should have like a little bit there, and that's what I did in my penultimate paragraph. And the final one was just like back to academics. So like, by studying history at university, I hope to explore areas I've not yet had the chance to. By studying history at university, I hope to explore areas I've not yet had the chance to, with the help of leading academics. I'm certain that my curiosity for learning will trigger many questions and help me to challenge even more narratives. So I linked it back to the thing I was talking about in the first paragraph about narratives. So yeah, I feel like it's so mad because I remember I was writing this personal statement, I was stressing about it like so much, just like damn, like, number one, you have to reach 4,000 characters, and some of the time like it can even be less than 4,000 characters, but it's also 37 lines. So if it's more than 37 lines, but it's still under 47 characters, then you can't use it. So this thing was just stressing me. I guess in addition to what the stuff I said, have fun with it. I feel like I never felt like a big need to talk about big stuff. I talked about what? Colonialism, slavery, Carla's address to the Oxford Union. So none of this stuff is like, it's cool, but it's not like, wow, like there's probably some major debates that are happening in history right now. But I didn't feel a need to talk about crazy stuff, because at the end of the day, if you're applying to like Oxbridge, if you're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, you're gonna have an interview about like your personal statement. I remember I had an interview, and if it was just something I wrote for the sake of, oh, it sounds big, it's gonna make me sound so cool, like let me read it and let me write about my personal statement, but really and truly, you don't enjoy it, you'd rather talk about something else. When it comes to questions, they're just gonna grill you. I remember my interviewer even asked me one question, and even though I knew the stuff, it was still like, she asked me such a curveball question. I was like, how did you even get to that question from reading this? But I feel like just having a good understanding of it, making it personal to me, I was kind of able to answer the question as best as I could. So that was good. So I say like, don't feel the need to talk about anything crazy. Don't feel the need to like write 10,000 books. One of my big paragraphs was about a YouTube video I watched. This was about my EPQ. Only one thing, I only mentioned one book I only directly referenced the one book in my personal statement. I read a few, like my head of UCAS, he said, make sure you read this. So I was like, cool, I'll read it. But you don't have to name drop 10,000 books. And even if it's like a big historian or whatever, it doesn't make you sound professional if you can't back it up, or if it's not interesting, so make sure to do that. But I can't lie, it's never gonna crack the first time you write it. I remember even this draft, how many takes did it take me? I think it took me at least 5. I remember I got to like draft 5 before it was like refining and stuff, but it's gonna take a while. Don't feel like discouraged and stuff, just like draft something. I'd say like just draft something, like get something onto paper. Even if it's bad, I feel like, you know, you have to make a start somewhere. Maybe if you're stuck on like how to start your personal statement, just like write down on a piece of paper, write down stuff about your subject, and write down, you know, what do you think interests you about your subject. So I don't know, like some chemists, I don't know what the interest of chemists about chemistry, I dropped that. I haven't touched the science since A level. But yeah, just like jot it down first. Like, cool, what is generally, when you think of your subject, what interests you? I was gonna talk about a few different things. I wanted to talk about democracy. I talked about it a bit here, but like I was doing like politics, so like British political history, which I like really enjoy. I even chose like a module next year on like political history. So that's something I enjoyed. I kind of mentioned it in my personal statement. So think about the things you enjoy and then try and get them onto paper or like Word. And I feel like it doesn't have to be perfect. The first draft is meant to be messy. Like it's gonna be bad. It's not good. You're not gonna write your first draft and think like it's sick. And if it is, I feel like I did, not even like a cocky way where you see it for the first time, you don't know what personal statement is like. It's like, cool, this is cool. Then you pass it to like a teacher or like a mentor on a program you're in, like, yeah, Red, you just seen XXX. You're thinking, damn, this is a magnum opus, but really and truly, like, it's never gonna be like that the first time you do it. So keep having fun with it. But I say in terms of Oxbridge applications, having a cool personal statement is good, but remember, like, it's holistic. So a personal statement is only like it's only part of your application. So even though like stress about it, I feel like try to do your best. But remember, if you're applying to Oxbridge, then it's your personal statement, it's your interview, it's your entrance exam, and then it's some written work if you do have to send written work to your college. So like it's a holistic process. So make sure like you pay attention to everything. Make sure to revise for your admissions test. I might do a video on that. I don't think I'm gonna do a video on that. I didn't even score. I scored below average, not like too below average, but I scored slightly below average for my written exam, for my what's it called, entrance exam. And then my interview, I got like a higher than average score, because I remember that they send you like a breakdown. They're like, do you want to know what you got? I was like, yeah. It's like, cool, for your interview you scored this, on average candidates scored this, for your written scoring was like this. So I feel like I can provide some good interview advice. I can probably collate some stuff from people who did well in written exams, but that wasn't really my forte. But yeah, I hope that helped. Those are just like my tips, me reading my personal statement, trying to help you guys. So drop some comments. Whether you're applying to Oxford or not, I feel like these tips will still help you